everyone, it's Sharronda from payorwait, and thank you guys for joining the Lovecraft Country After Show. I will be your host today, where we will be breaking down episode 1, Sundown, after the premiere has just aired. I have two of my favorite people in the world, some amazing journalists, my colleagues, so I want to go ahead and introduce them. First up, I have KB. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
So KB is a journalist. She has bylines in Comet Speak, Nerdist, NBC Black, payorwait.com, and Collider, where she had her Lovecraft Country review posted. So Kay, tell everybody where you at. What are you representing right now?
Whoo, child. Okay, well, you can find me, as you can see below, at the Lady KB on Twitter and Instagram. I like to write about all things Black with the intersection of sci-fi. So yeah, you can catch my reviews, obviously, where Sharronda just mentioned, and lots of interviews coming your way. A lot more Lovecraft Country interviews with more of the cast, for sure.
And we love to see it. Next up, I have another one of my faves, Robert Daniels, who is the creator of 812 Film Reviews. He has bylines in Roger Ebert, The Playlist, Vulture, Rotten Tomatoes. Robert is busy, you guys. I can't name all of the outlets that he actually writes for, but he is doing the dang old thing. Welcome to the After Show, Robert.
Thanks for having me. You can find me 812 Film Reviews. I'm going to have tomorrow, I'm going to be in the Nerdist talking about this episode more in depth about Sundown towns. So yeah, find me there.
Ooh.
And we're not going to judge Rob, but he is from Chicago, where Lovecraft Country has a little segment where it takes place. I'm not going to judge him because he is a Cubs fan, but it is okay because I still love Robert.
The Cubs, Robert? Oh, God.
Sharronda's a Cardinals fan. You can't really.
I am.
Ooh, both are terrible, but here we are. Go Stros. But here we are.
So for those of you who are new to Lovecraft Country, the series is actually co-created between Misha Green, Jordan Peele. Misha Green is the showrunner of this show. It is actually based on the book by Matt Ruff with the same title, Lovecraft Country, as we follow Atticus Freeman, who is played by Jonathan Majors, as he embarks on a road trip with his friend Letitia, played by Journey Smollett, and his uncle George, played by the great Courtney B. Vance, as they embark on a road trip in 1950s Jim Crow America, as they are traveling, trying to find his father, Montrose Freeman, who is played by Michael K. Williams. And basically, they begin a struggle to survive and overcome the racial terrors of white America and the terrifying monsters that could be ripped from a Lovecraft paperback. So this week's episode, the premiere episode, episode 1, is titled Sundown. It is directed by Jan Demange, who you may know from directing White Boy Rick, Top Boy. So before we really break down this episode, Kay, what are your first reactions to episode 1?
Woo! I will say, for me, so the episode does start off a little bit slower. Like in the beginning, we're trying to figure out who these characters are, what they're about. But whoo, baby, those last 15 minutes amped all the way up. And when I tell you in those last 15 minutes, that is when I knew that I was hooked and I needed to see more. I needed to know more. I needed to understand more about this world. That was it for me, honey. But I will say, so I'm going in there out of the three of us, I am the outlier because I do not like horror. So I will say that I am too scared, y'all. Like, I do not do horror. But I was like, you know what? I love all things Black. I love all things sci-fi. This is at the intersection of both. So let me go ahead and give it a shot. And I am so glad that I did, that I stuck it through, that I kept watching. And honestly, just during the scary part, y'all, I'm just have to close my eyes. I mean, that's what it is.
Robert, what is your initial reaction to episode 1?
Yeah, so it didn't start too slow for me, mostly because so much of the early portions in Chicago, so I was like kind of picking out different locations, and so much of it, a lot of the production design and the costumes and the cinematography was just fantastic. The entire first episode felt like the best movie I've seen this year, and then the last 20 minutes is insane. Like it's almost a complete the first episode is almost 3 different episodes in one. With the third section being the best.
No, I definitely agree. You know, had I known that I was going to have several panic attacks, an asthma attack, but you know what? My doctor said I don't have asthma no more, so we're going to claim that. But I still had to take my inhaler after the last 20 minutes. I had to make myself a little drink because I was just like, oh my goodness. Had I known y'all were going to come for my edges in the last 20 minutes, I would have made sure that I would have been better prepared, honey.
But that's the beauty of it, though, right? Because now it just drew you in. It pulled you all the way in. Like now you're like, oh crap, what's happening next week? I have no idea. And to be fair,
it pulled me in. It pulled my edges out. I was just like, I wasn't ready. Even from, you know, it was like the last 20 minutes is just like pure horror. We have the social thrillers like thrown into it, and even with kind of just these overtones, the samples that they have. We had James Baldwin with his debates. I just thought it was so beautifully crafted together. I almost felt like we didn't deserve this in 2020. We didn't deserve this in 2020. Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna disagree. I feel like we've suffered enough.
We have suffered enough. Okay?
We do deserve. Like.
So what I want to do is I want to kind of get into this opening sequence. I think that there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to break down. There's a lot of Easter eggs to be found. And I really want to kick this actually to Robert, because in the beginning of the episode, we see this dream sequence. Atticus is, he's in this war, but it's not your typical type of war. We have spacecraft, spaceships. We have aliens, flying monsters going on. And then we see that he is greeted by this woman who comes off of this spaceship. And as she's holding him, she whispers something into his ear. And then we see an Easter egg from one of H.P. Lovecraft's novels, one of his great monsters. But the narration that is actually happening as we see Jackie Robinson, number 42, come and save Atticus from the monster. We hear this voiceover, this narration that is actually from Spike Lee's screenplay that he released online for the Jackie Robinson story. And so I know, Robert, you actually read the entire screenplay, so I wanted to kick this off to you to break this down for us.
Yeah, so the voiceover that you hear, Spike Lee mentions it in his unproduced Jackie Robinson screenplay. It comes from an actual film called The Jackie Robinson Story that came out around the same time. So that's a really good Easter egg. And then just the fact that, you know, when this is set during the 1950s, this was the era of where Jackie Robinson was this national hero, at least this Black national hero. And yeah, so it sets up the entire episode so well, because obviously this is a trio between George, between Letty, between Atticus, who are going to be traveling almost like, you know, where Jackie Robinson kind of traveled on these road trips to these racist southern, northeastern, midwestern cities, and they're almost going to take a similar journey themselves.
Yes, and Kay, what were your thoughts on this opening sequence as we explore Atticus's mind during his dream?
So honestly, when I saw this sequence, and I still feel this way, I don't necessarily think that it is a dream. So I think that, you know, Atticus, this might be some sort of memory or some sort of like, maybe it's a few memories kind of meshed into one that he's had, maybe from a past life, or maybe something that we'll see later on. I didn't actually think it was a dream at first. I was like, oh, okay, this is a bold way to start off though. Like, you know, immediately get to it. But, you know, when the woman whispers in his ear, which to be honest, I couldn't really hear like what she was saying. But I think that whatever is whispered in his ear in that dream will come back. That's what I remember saying to myself when I first saw it. I said, whatever she's saying will happen in reality, I feel like.
Okay, I'm loving these little predictions that you have right now.
I got a whole slew of predictions.
I felt like she was actually the lady that Atticus ends up calling in South Korea. Mm-hmm. I feel like she had so I'm just saying, Robert had to look like he didn't agree with me. So what are your thoughts, Robert?
No, I didn't. You know what? I think it was just a dream. I mean, I do think these things are going to reoccur, and we've already seen that they're in a world that isn't bound by the normal physical laws. Well, yeah, we've seen that already, kind of, with the Lovecraftian monsters, right? But but I think at some point there might be a moment where this is a torture device, because obviously Atticus is very much into this type of literature that maybe is some psychological thing that gets used against them later on in the series.
Okay.
I kind of like that.
Now, also, too, the monster that we see in the opening sequence that Jackie Robinson actually ends up defeating with his bat, which I really thought that sequence was so cool to have Jackie Robinson in there, because for anyone who knows who H.P. Lovecraft was as, Arthur, he was very racist. And so the fact that you have this iconic Black baseball player who changed so much, in the baseball league, be the one to destroy his monster, which was actually from the call of Chahuluhu. I know I probably said that wrong, but y'all just charge it to my mind. Okay, which was also published in 1928, which is actually kind of where their narration takes place as well with Jackie Robinson, which I thought was actually pretty cool. But we see him actually wake up and he's dreaming on this bus, even though, Kay doesn't think it was a dream, but that's fine. We're going to roll with that for a moment. But he wakes up and we see, I think it's really funny that the lady kind of tells him like, hey, like nothing to worry about. We just passing over another bridge of a dead slave owner. And when she said, glory, hallelujah, I said, that sounds like something my mama and my grandma would say. But she's kind of saying we made it into the promised land. We made it out of the Jim Crow South. And as Atticus flicks them off, and then I guess the dead slave master's ancestors felt him flicking them off, and then basically the bus ends up breaking down, and we see that everyone has to get off the bus. It is a segregated bus from the South, and when the guy pulled up to help them, I was like, that man is not about to let y'all get on this truck, honey. And we end up seeing Atticus and the black woman. They actually end up walking to the nearest town. And they have a really interesting conversation. I want to get your thoughts on this, as she's asking Atticus what book was he reading, and he's actually reading a book titled A Princess to Mars, which was by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And it's about this ex-Confederate soldier who ends up fighting the Confederacy. He went for gold rushing to Arizona, ends up getting trapped in this cave that transports him to Mars. And I love the line that she says to Atticus, when you say ex-Confederate, like he fought for slavery, it ain't no X in that. Like, what are you talking about? And I wanted to get your thoughts on the comments that she made, and we can start with you, Kay.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think she hit the nail on the head. She kind of is like, once you've made that choice for your life, you have decided to fight, like, I can't trust you. And that kind of distrust is something I think that we see throughout the entire episode, in terms of how, like, the interactions between Black people and white people when they go on the road trip eventually, we start to see a lot of this, distrust, and that distrust is warranted. Like, I think she's right, like there really isn't, for her, in her mind, there really is no salvation or really coming back from that. And I understand why. And that's something that we continue to see. Now, why Atticus seemed like in that moment, he was a bit more reserved, like, oh, no, kind of like, you don't think so? And I was thinking to myself, baby, this journey you about to go on, sir, you're going to find out. And I'm pretty sure that you're going to change your mind. Like everything that woman said to you, you'll experience here shortly when you go on this road trip.
And Robert?
Yeah, their conversation felt so prescient, considering, I mean, like, I don't know when exactly they filmed Lovecraft Country, but when I was watching it, the first thing that popped in my mind was the whole debate that's been happening around Confederate statues and tearing those down, right? And people making the argument of, like, well, this person might have fought for the South, but then they did this later on in their life, and they might have repented in some way. And to hear that line of, no, you don't get to put an X in front of that. There is no redemption for fighting for slavery, felt very, 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 almost like a premonition.
Mm-hmm. I think, Robert, to your point, I think they filmed in 2017. If I read correctly, I think they filmed then. But
they were prophesizing before they even knew what was going to happen in 2020. But one of the things that I really took from that moment and that conversation that he's having with her is, for him, he's just like, we have these flawed characters, and I love reading these pulp magazines, and this is just the characters that we're introduced to. And I think it really made me think about how for so long in sci-fi and horror, how our community, the Black community, has always been ignored, right? And we've always had to digest these movies that come out, these books that come out that don't really, if we are included, don't necessarily paint us in the best of light, or just completely alienate and ignore us, as Black people. And I thought it was very interesting to hear him say that, and even talk about how, I just read it for the adventure because this is something that I actually enjoy. And then we kind of get the note when she's like, is that why you joined the war? Because we do know that Atticus fought in the Korean War, but says, no, I was actually trying to escape my father. And basically, that's kind of our first inkling of this kind of dysfunctional or toxic relationship that Atticus actually has with Montrose. I did want to highlight that Ambria Ashley, she says, we sure do deserve this show after this year. Show me more Black people kicking butt, please. So I wanted to highlight that super chat. She said, we deserve it, okay? And I am absolutely here for it. So we see that he ends up making it into Chicago, where we are introduced to the characters Hippolyta Freeman, George Freeman, and also too we're introduced to their young daughter Dee. And I do want to highlight kind of the conversation. George was trying to get his little groove back. Okay, I had to say that because Angela Bassett. That's okay. I'm sorry, my bad. But he was trying to get some stuff going on in the boom boom room before he went on his journey for his safe travel Negro book. And he's having this conversation with Hippolyta, his wife, played by the great Ingenue Ellis. Oh, I love her so much. She's such a fantastic actress. I love her so much. So I had to be extra when I said her name. So I apologize. So they're having this conversation where she's basically asking him like, hey, I can start doing these trips for you. And then he tells her, being on the road, there's no place for a woman. And so this is one of the first times that we're introduced not just to what Black people go through, but specifically as a woman, how as women, we're still seen lesser than. It's too dangerous for you to do this, but it's okay for you to write for the book and publish all of these things. And, that quickly got her out of the mood. And so I wanted to know, Kay, what were your thoughts on the conversation between Hippolyta and George?
I think personally, for her, you could see kind of the disappointment in her face when he was really like, it's a different experience on the road. I don't really want to have you out there. And I think, come to find out later on, just through their conversations in the episode, that he was actually injured while on the road, which is a lot of his hesitation about having his wife out there. But the thing about Hippolyta is, and as everyone will continue to see, is for me, she's brilliant and she's bold and she doesn't really take no for an answer. And so because of that, you also kind of see in her face like, oh, I'm going to be on this road. Like you already know, like based on their conversation, that there is going to be a shift if she has anything to do with it. Because it's important to her and it's something that she wants to experience. And she goes after the things that she wants. And that's what I love the most. But I will say that scene for me in particular, it's very rare that we get to see Black love in such a way where they are not only sharing their home, but they're sharing a business, where they're communicating about that. They have a family. It's just very different. And it was very loving, and they're very stable. They're almost like the most stable family unit that we see on the show, actually. And so it's nice to kind of have that normalcy. It's nice for them to kind of be the grounded pair that we see in the family. But yeah, I just feel like Hippolyta is like, oh, she's like, don't worry. Like, we'll have this conversation another time. Like, don't you worry. Because, he like, no, girl, you're not going out this road. Not this time. And she's like, okay, like, we'll see about that almost. But yeah, she's very headstrong, which I like. And also, which is reflective in Dee, something that you see as well. Like, they allow Dee a lot of freedom, a lot of creativity. And you can tell that she gets a lot of that from her mom because her mom is so strong.
And Robert, I want to ask you a question. Kimmy actually states that also his wife was already on the road in the book, so she wonders why they were set in the show. And Robert, I know that you've read the book as well, and I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about kind of where we see Hippolyta in the show versus where we kind of find her in Matt Ruff's novel?
Yeah, so in Matt Ruff's novel, she has a lot more autonomy. She's, as was mentioned by Kimmy, she's on the road. She is writing portions of the Green Book herself, and the show definitely changes that, and we don't know why yet they've changed that. And hopefully, it's for a good reason. Because I thought that Hippolyta in the book was actually one of the better characters. And then the other gender bend that they did was with Dee in the book. Dee is their son and not their daughter, which works with the idea of like the comic book that we see Dee draw for George, of the female superhero. So there, I mean, having read the book, there are a lot of changes from the book to the series. And I think the first episode is about as close to the book as we get throughout.
No, I definitely agree. I do want to highlight another one of my faves, Joy. We love you, Joy. We love you too, girl.
We love you.
You my rib girl.
I hope, though, to your point, though, Robert, because I have not read the book, I do hope that moving forward, the Hippolyta that's in the book is kind of brought into the series in that way. Like everything that you're saying about her autonomy in the book, I hope is how, it ends up going.
I don't want to disappoint you, Kay, but they kind of
listen.
I
don't know what the last 5 episodes hold. So that's
okay,
all.
Yeah, in the book she has her own chapter.
Right. And I'm hoping in the series maybe she gets like her own episode. We'll get like a little bit more in the backstory and things like that. Don't break my heart, Sharronda.
I don't say nothing. We don't know what the rest of the season has in store for us, but I do want to set people up with the expectations who have read the book, that there are huge differences from the book to the actual show. Some creative liberties have been taken that I actually think is for the best. So I'm excited for everyone to kind of just go with the flow and find out as the episodes unfold. Oh, thank you, Kimmy. We appreciate you, boo. Thank you.
Thank you.
So after that, we see that Atticus reunites with his Uncle George, and after he interrupted the Boom Boom Room, what was happening, I feel bad for them. But we see that they're having this conversation where he tells George that he has received this letter from his father. That's the reason why he's actually here in Chicago at this time, where his father has found a part of his mother's past. And there's a birthright that Atticus is due that he needs to actually claim. And so I find it interesting because he picks up a book. And it's a book called The Outside and Others, which is one of the first novels that was actually published by Arkham House. And I like how they bring up right afterwards when Atticus tells him, because George is like, I didn't know you were into horror like that. But he brings up how his father made him read a poem by H.P. Lovecraft called The Creation of the N-Word. I'm not going to just bring that negativity into my life right now. I'm going to have peace. But this is another time where we kind of interject who H.P. Lovecraft was as, an author, and that he did have a racist past. And I wanted to know your thoughts on them actually including mentioning the poem that H.P. Lovecraft wrote. And Robert, we can start with you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I absolutely love about this series and I loved about the book was how well-read all these characters were. And not just well-read, but each one of them had their own, their own type of genre that they liked. George loves horror novels, whereas like Atticus loves, pulpy kind of stuff. Dee loves comic books. Each one of them has their own separate genre that they like. And I mean, I think bringing in Lovecraft once again, like connecting it back to the opening scene when we're talking about learning to love things that necessarily don't love you back, which has always felt like the story of being Black in America, you know. Um, and yeah, no, the entire conversation of them going through like Montrose, telling him, you know, you can't read this because and I think in the book they go more in depth on why Montrose doesn't like, you know, H.P. Lovecraft, and I think Montrose even gives him something else to read in the book. But yeah, no, I thought the entire conversation from like a literary academic standpoint was something we don't often see, not just in like Black series, but also like sci-fi series in general.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Robert. Like, I think for me, one of the biggest things that drew me into the show was seeing a Black family of bibliophiles. Like, they genuinely love to learn. They love education. They love reading. It's like wildly important to them in their family. And they see it kind of as a badge of honor almost, you know, and the way that they converse about books is kind of like their own special kind of love language. So for me, taking those nods or putting those nods to H.P. Lovecraft, I feel like they were taking back the power. You know, like I feel like that's what Matt Ruff was trying to do in his novel. And I think that's what they're doing in this show really is just let's take back, you know, everything that H.P. Lovecraft, you know, tried to do. And obviously, like, he is a forefather of this type of genre, so to speak. So, you know, obviously there are some things to that nature, but we also know that he's wildly racist and we do not accept that. So let's take back this power. And they're creating, I believe, kind of their own legacy out of the show. You know, trying to separate themselves from kind of the H.P. Lovecrafts of it all, but also acknowledging the fact that he is, that he did kind of do some things for the horror genre. I'm gonna roll my eyes because he's still wildly racist and we still do not accept that. But here we are. But I do appreciate, you know, that they are doing like a small something of like acknowledging him, but also being like, okay.
Yeah, you know, I want to piggyback off of that because we actually see this reference a lot throughout the course of the first episode, especially with Atticus. We see him as a studious person. Everyone talk about how he was a bookworm, a nerd, his glasses, and even as we get into the Sundown territory of them always referring to him as he thinks that he's smart. And then we actually have these positive representations of the Black family of people who are interested in comics, who are interested in sci-fi, who we have George's wife who is interested. She's like an astronomer. She knows everything about astronomy. To see these positive, well-educated, well-versed Black characters in a show like this, I think that's why Lovecraft Country is so important right now. But we got to talk about one of my other favorite characters, okay? We got to talk about Letty and Ruby. So what I do want to ask you guys, what are your first impressions of both Letty and Ruby? I mean, you got a face case, so tell me how you feeling.
Ruby is a star first. So let me just go ahead and say that. Ruby is a star, that's clear, very early on. And not just in her singing voice, which she is. Like, I mean, you know, her stage presence, how she carries herself when we meet her. She's bold. She is boisterous. She's honest. She's brash. Like, I love everything about Ruby. And I love Letty too. And they're very similar yet different. So, like, obviously their personalities are both very strong. And I think that that's why they have so much tension. And obviously, like, there's just a lot that goes into sibling dynamics in general. Because you're like kind of forced to be, you know, family and friends with these people. And then you grow up to be the people that you are supposed to be. And sometimes you don't always like them. Like, you don't always like who they grew up to be. And that's really the case between Ruby and Letty. You know, I kind of feel like Ruby, being the older sister, always thought that eventually Letty would maybe be less selfish, or she would be more this or more that. And it's just never the case. You know, Letty is a bit of a tornado. And she just kind of comes in. She kind of comes in, does her thing, and then moves about. She's not really thinking about how her actions are going to impact anyone else. She's just doing what she thinks is best for herself in that moment, and then she moves on. So interesting dynamic to see the two of them, because obviously, like, Ruby is not excited that her sister is home, like, because she knows what this means. She knows she's going to be out of some money. She knows that, you know, it's going to be out of some time. She knows that her sister's going to pick up and probably do a couple of destructive things on her way out. So she's not happy. And meanwhile, Letty really thinks that this time she's home to rebuild. And it's like, whoo, child, girl. Just like I said about Atticus, like, you finna find out on this journey, honey. I mean, like, you have one plan. Like, you're like, oh, I'm back in Chicago. I'm going to get a job. Girl, we can live together. And Ruby's like, live together? Now, hold on. Like, no. And meanwhile, Letty's like, oh, I'm going to put down some roots. And meanwhile, whoo, child, Ruby's like, no, girl. And then also, you know, Letty's whole life changes. So here we are.
Okay, let's talk about the shade though. Why she have to shade her like that?
Yeah, because sometimes, listen, I don't know where you guys fall in the. Actually, that's not true. I know Sharronda's the baby. I don't know where Robert falls in the sibling dynamics, but I am the oldest, and that I know Ruby. That's exactly why I connect with her.
I'm the middle child, so that feels like everyone's picking on them. So
see, and I understand you, Robert, but these youngest ones, honey.
Why are you coming for my life right now?
Like, whoo.
I be holding it down for myself now. But you know, my big brother had to swoop in and save me a couple of times, especially during college. But you know, he held it down. That's what you're supposed to do. Shoot, we gotta find our way.
Listen, whoo, child. That's why I made a face, because I felt Ruby too, in my core, in my spirit. I was like, girl.
Oh, she felt it in her spirit. Okay, Robert. I mean, you don't have this slander that Kay has. You know, what are your thoughts? I just felt like she just came from my entire life just now. My goodness.
My youngest sister is my least favorite sibling too, so I get the younger thing.
Just disrespectful.
But I agree with Kay about the tornado, describing Letty as a tornado, and as a tease for the rest of the series, Ruby ends up being I think Ruby's my favorite character in Lovecraft Country.
Yeah. Hands down.
Join us, Robert. She's like,
I support this older sibling slander though, but Ruby is my favorite. I just want to Kay, Bloop has some words from you. Are you trying to intimidate us, Miss Kay?
Listen, I don't have to intimidate. Listen, I don't have to. But y'all already know how y'all be behaving. These younger siblings, y'all already know.
Then Taylor says tornado siblings stay going off on adventures to come back, need a place to stay.
Hello.
I mean,
a word. Whew, a word.
Well, tell me how y'all really, but I just don't appreciate this. But can we talk about how Letty had some eyes? She was looking at the black party. She saw Atticus, honey, with that shirt off.
Honey, Atticus grew up.
Oh, you know what I said? I'm not going to objectify him today. But babe,
you can't follow it up with a back though. Either you're right or you're not. Like,
baby, Atticus had a glow up, okay? No one recognized who Atticus was. He left as this nerdy little boy. He came back a man, honey. A whole man.
War will change your life. So, you know.
An entire glow up to come. I feel like they're kind of hinting towards us, because then we saw Atticus kind of giving Letty the eyes. So like, do I spot a love connection happening? Because I'm totally here for it. I mean, after me and Atticus, get married, but still,
She was the only girl in the sci-fi club. Isn't that what he said?
He sure did. See, y'all need to stop. Y'all trying to find y'all husband. Y'all need to go to them sci-fi clubs. It's okay to be a nerd. I'm just saying.
Who are you talking to? The children, or
who are you talking
to? If we are adults in the room, I'm just, I just wanted to give a little word for everyone, because being that only girl who be into comics and sci-fi, you might find you a little boo thing. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna stop, and I'm going to continue on. But
like what?
Why do you guys even listen to me? I just don't even understand it at this point. But I do want to talk about we're given a little bit more insight into who Atticus' father was, right? So we see that Atticus goes to the bar. And he's trying to figure out what's happening with his father. George said he thinks he's been missing for 2 weeks. I'm like, I don't know how long he's been missing. I'm just a little confused by that. But
older, younger siblings. We can refer back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But he was supposed to be the responsible one.
But Montrose is the baby. So George is probably like, you know how he do. I mean, like, honestly, like.
Okay. But he goes to the bar, and his little friend at the front was about to catch them hands. Okay, if he grabbed him one more time, talking about we trying to prepare for this block party, sir, don't touch me. Because he gave him a look like, touch me one more time, you're going to get these hands very quickly. And so we see that he goes out in the back. He kind of set him up. Like, he knew exactly what the owner was doing outside. Back, you trying to get him a little something good, you know, in the alleyway. Probably not sanitary, but, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And he tells him that he recognizes him. I'm sorry, y'all. You know, my followers, they understand my
I'm talking about, you said it's probably not sanitary. Like,
it's not. You're in the alley. Probably roaches and rats out there. What are you doing?
I'm just laughing at you.
So he's out there getting him a little unsanitary something. And he sees Atticus, and Atticus is like, oh, my bad, I'm sorry. And he basically tells him that, you know, he saw his father a couple weeks ago. They allude to the fact that he was an alcoholic because he tells him, like, hey, I've seen you. You've had to drag your father off out of the bar a couple of times. And he tells him that he left with a white gentleman who had money. He had a nice car. He was dressed to impress. Okay, he had the clothing. He was like, he couldn't be just no average white man. He had a little change on him. So we see this first glimpse into the car that we end up seeing after Atticus, Letty, and George are trying to escape from their lunch from hell. And we see him go into his father's apartment as we see Atticus kind of bringing himself back into that mental zone of what his life was like with his father. And we see that he's reading one of Robert's favorite books, The Count of Monte Cristo, which, if you guys have not watched the movie The Count of Monte Cristo, it is that deal. Go watch it right now. You will thank me later. It is so good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I got that out of there. But we see Atticus makes a phone call to South Korea, and he's on the phone, and a woman answers, and she calls him Tick. So I was like, you calling people by nicknames? Like, what type of relationship did you guys have? And then I got a little shook. I'm not going to lie. The music had me scared because she was like, you went home? Like, you shouldn't have done that. And then I was just like, oh, my God. Like, why can't he go home? What is happening? What were your thoughts about the phone call and the perfect bicep tricep? Because I went and did some like tricep extensions after. I'm just saying, I just want to give props to where y'all saw that bicep, you saw that arm, he like muscles and stuff. I ain't gonna know muscles. I don't know why I'm trying to show y'all something. But what were you? They're never coming back on this show again, ever. But what were your thoughts on that moment?
Well, which moment? The phone call?
You said what?
I said which moment? The phone call?
Yes, the phone call. I mean, if you wanted to go back to the unsanitary boom boom alley scene, I mean, you
can. The phone call. Basically, my initial thought was the woman on the phone is the same woman that was in the dream. And when she called him Tick, I was like, they definitely used to be involved because there is a, kind of familiarity. Obviously, their relationship was more than professional, it seems. And when she warned him, I was like, ooh, is she prophetic though? And that's really where I left it. Like, is she prophetic? What else is she going to tell him? What else are we going to find out? Who knows where she is? I was like, does she have a secret child? Like, mostly my mind just went to a lot of
child.
Yes, honey, because they used to be involved. I know they used to be involved. Like, when I heard her voice, plus it's just a different level of concern that you could hear in her voice that let me know that they had previously been involved in some capacity. That's why my mind also was like, I bet they got a secret child. But then, yes.
Robert, I mean, do you feel like they have a secret child?
You better say yes, honey.
I don't know. So like once again as a tease, this becomes a long-term mystery in the series of who this woman is that he's calling and why she's saying don't return back home. Which I find interesting But as you're describing Montrose, something I also found interesting was how Montrose, and I don't know why I didn't, I mean, it's probably obvious, but how he very much is almost when Atticus is first describing his love of Hope fiction and about them kind of not loving him back and loving the imperfections, that very much is his father. That is his relationship with his father. And it kind of gets rehashed over and over again throughout this episode.
Yeah. Ooh, which is why the secret baby makes sense. Stories about fatherhood.
But you know what? We got MCK asking the important questions. How much was the phone call? I said, sir, we make it wrong. This is South Korea.
This is an international call.
His dad is going to whoop him when he sees that phone bill.
Oh, South Korea? You sure? Like, I was just like, you gonna leave some money on the nightstand paying for this phone bill?
Child, when his daddy get back, honey, he's gonna be like, excuse me, who called South Korea 18 times? Who is that?
4 or 5 second conversation talking about you shouldn't have went home.
And then hung up on her. Disrespectful. Because honestly, you called me though. Like, but
you don't want me to tell you the truth? Like that's what we're doing right now? I'm just saying.
That's why she hasn't told him about the secret baby yet. She didn't have time because he hung up.
That's the secret baby. I think I got in trouble from Trey. I think it was about the unsanitary boom boom, but I was just, I mean, I just want us to be safe and sanitary out in the streets. I mean, do what you got to do. Sorry.
Listen.
Now that we have a baby on the way as well. And Joy says that Jamie Chung plays the alien, the opening scene, and the secret baby mama. See what you started, Kay? Now you're going to have everybody in these Twitter streets talking about they got a secret baby.
And also, though, shout out to Jamie Chung because I watched her season of Real World and it was phenomenal. And look at this. Like, look at this progression. Girl, you are on Lovecraft Country.
Okay?
Dreams do come true.
HBO now from MTV to HBO.
Come on. Dreams do come true. Anything is possible. Okay?
Ask about me. I'm just saying. Okay. Now that I've lost exactly where we were in this episode recap between the secret baby that's on the way and the unsanitary boom boom, I guess we'll go into that they're on a journey now. Letty is actually coming with them. That's when we get that little look that Atticus is giving, like you don't want, girl. You don't. Y'all remember that? Put your finger in it.
You don't want, girl. That's my jam. But also, I will say for me though, that was lost, and maybe you guys can help me. I wasn't entirely sure why Letty came. Like, it wasn't really clear. Like, Letty pretty much just hopped in. It was mostly like we have this black party, and then all of a sudden Letty was there. So if y'all could fill in that blank,
we got you. So Ruby was talking about you got 2 days. You got to find a job. Letty, right. I'm not out here. Do you see these hands? These are not working woman's hands, okay? And so she decided that she was going to go hit up her brother Marvin and ask him for some change and a place to stay. And so
Marvin is on the way.
Marvin is on the way to where they're going to go to Arnhem.
Which also, let's talk about how like Arnhem is the creepiest sounding town, and I would never go there. Like just the name alone. Do you want to go to Arnhem? I do not. Like
it was created by witch hunters. I would be like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to go to the house of the Lord and ask him to pray over me and cleanse me from these demonic spirits trying to get me. Okay. I'm gonna go to a witch hunting Salem town. I wish I would. I can hear my mama right now. Like that's the devil. You don't need to be doing that. That's nothing but the devil. If my father is watching, don't be snitching on me because my father does snitch on me and shows my mother my live streams. And if she asks what I'm drinking, tell her it's Coke. Okay, that's something that I have to do.
Not snitching. Oh my God.
He's snitching. Okay, I'm just saying. But sorry, we just had to get that out there because my dad does love to snitch on me.
Somebody said you're drinking that Christian juice.
Thank you, Randy. It is the Christian juice. I'm gonna go to hell. I ain't even gonna say that. I don't want to go to hell today. So they're on this journey and they make it to No, we have to talk about the lunch from hell, actually. We're going to talk about the lunch from hell. So George gets this idea. Ooh, I'm sure is hungry. I want to go eat at this place that was supposed to be saving. They serve black people. It's going to be a pleasant experience. We're going to get our stomachs fed. They're going to be just respectful as can be to us. And then they going through the town. They head to Simonsville. I said, George.
Yeah, like, honestly, that was a fail. George didn't actually pay attention to his surroundings because I was like, George, like, no way I'm getting out this car, honey. Like, have you looked around?
The signs were there. The signs were there. Okay. I was just like, are you seeing what I'm seeing, George? Because I'm really confused. But they
pulled up by a burnt up building. Like it was burnt next door.
The Lord was showing the signs the entire time, and George was just ignoring it, talking about I'm hungry. Like, sir, keep your hunger, okay?
Well, also, as soon as they pulled up, remember, Letty was like, this is not the name of the establishment you said. And he was like, it's fine. They'll serve us. And I was like, George, normally that means that the owners have changed hands. And you probably are not going to be safe here, young sir.
Because I didn't feel safe when they walked in. They had to seat themselves, which that's still a problem in restaurants today. That's a whole nother story. But they had to seat themselves. The man that walked out, he was enjoying his biscuits and gravy. He saw them walk in. He said, oh, not today, Satan.
He said, you let these blacks in here? No.
Disrupting my spirit, my lunch break? No, we're not doing this. So we see that the server shook. I was shook, like, what is about to happen? And we see that Letty goes to the bathroom and she overhears him talking on the phone, talking about, I deserved him, after what happened to Miss Lydia. And I was like, oh, Miss Lydia, as in the owner that George thought he's going to Miss Lydia's establishment. So they have a very interesting conversation, though, when they talk about, so there's actually a rumor that the reason the White House is painted white is after the war 1812, the British soldiers went and burned down the White House, and the slaves had to paint the house white. And then as they're kind of having this back and forth with this nice little history, Atticus kind of looks at the floorboard, is the burn marks. I was just like, oh, I think they burnt Miss Lydia's place because she was serving black people. And then this is the moment that I just want to I never thought that I would have a show where, as a black person, what you're thinking is what they're saying. When Eddie ran out and said, we got to get the F up out of here, I said there is a God, okay? There is a God, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this entire sequence of them having to run up out of Miss X Lydia's establishment. So Robert, let's start with you because Robert kind of gave me a face when I was talking, so I just want to know what that shade was about.
I mean, yeah, you would think like George, as a person who takes these trips regularly, would be able to read the room. Would be driving to town, see the stairs, go into this restaurant, see this guy clearly angry that they even exist. And it reminded me of like earlier in the episode where George talks about like his two knees that have been blown out because of traveling on the road. And it's like, well, I can see why now. It all makes sense, and I just, as character development for the scene, like you find out, I mean, throughout the episode, especially in the scene, how observant Atticus is. He's just looking, the POV shots where he's just looking around the restaurant, putting together the signs and the clues. You can almost see the wheel turning in his head. And then Letty's just amazing. I think that Letty, episode 1, I think, is kind of Letty's episode, and that's the moment where she takes over, is when they run out of that restaurant.
Okay.
So I will say this. The entire time I was like, how can Uncle George be so smart and be so dense right now? Like, I was like, do you care about your
he new? He was a citizen.
New knees?
He said he deserved to be there. He said his knees were shattered anyway. They was trash to begin with.
Like, I just the whole time, and also I thought Letty was quite brave for being like, I'm gonna go to the restroom. Girl, what? I'm not going nowhere by myself in this establishment. Let's start there. I also thought Tick was gonna be like, nah, girl, I'm gonna follow you. That's what I actually thought was gonna happen because the whole thing was so shady. And I will say though, I did like that exactly like Robert said, as Tick is processing, Letty rushes out and says exactly what he was thinking. Oh, we gotta get the hell up out of here, honey. And then, you know, Letty, oh, can I curse on your show?
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, just
Sharronda been cursing.
So, you know, when she was like, I'm Letty fucking Lewis, we like, yes, you are, girl. Get here, race car driving skills and make sure that we get out. Now, Letty, drive, you killing it. Except then now we're in another racist. Like it's never ending. It's like
it never ended. I do want to highlight. Joy wanted to give a shout out to Letty for running into them hills.
Come on, she said yes.
I can't even wear heels on a normal day. And then Maddie me, she was hiding in. She said, "We gotta get up out of here." And can we get on George though? Because George was like, "Letty, let me have,
sir, your knees are busted."
No, I'm trying to save my life.
You can do high school chases with no knees. Like
no knees. No knees whatsoever. I did want to highlight another super chat we got from Lamont. Hey, buddy. What a great first episode. The foundation was set, and we cannot wait to discuss this with you tomorrow. Oh, I'm glad you reminded me, boo, because I forgot. Great way to start a new HBO class. He know I'll be forgetting. He know he gotta send me a message. But
I said tomorrow, and she was like, "Who?"
We gotta talk about P-Valley, The Shy, Lovecraft. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. But we're introduced to what's that girl name? Christina Braithwaite. Sorry, y'all don't know her name yet, but we're gonna tell you anyway. Christina Braithwaite. It's not a spoiler because but y'all knew it was gonna be spoilers, so it's okay. I'm just saying. But we see that as they're racing. I do want to point out, one more thing, because all the disrespectful things that George said. Back to what you said, Kay, when he was like, girl, like, you need to learn how to drive. And she was like, I'm not girl. My name is Letitia F. I said, girl, you better tell him. I'm sorry, y'all. I just felt it in my spirit. I got really hyped just now. I know. But I felt disrespected when George said that to her in the first place. So I just wanted to make sure that I really brought that up one more time. But we're introduced to Christina Braithwaite, and she has this nice little car that gets caught up in between the truck shooting at Atticus and them. I was shook. Atticus talking about get the gun. I was just like, get the gun? What y'all finna do? And then we see that the truck ends up, I don't know if it was about to hit the car. It like flips. Then Christina gets out, and then she looking out cute in her little hat and stuff. I'm like, okay, girl, you better act like ain't nothing out of place. It's almost as if she purposely saved them. And so what are your predictions about or your thoughts about Christina? Since we're given the Easter egg that she was there outside of Atticus' dad's apartment, and then she's also here saving them from the trucks that are chasing them.
Oh, my thoughts are, as always, which I also put in my Collider review, I do not want Christina to be a white savior. That is my one request. As the show progresses, I do not want, anything to turn. I don't want the tides to turn. I don't want Christina to be a white savior. Right now, she is a mysterious woman in a very expensive luxury vehicle who happens to be there right at the right moment. So obviously she knows something about Montrose. I mean, that's what I thought watching this episode. She has to know something about Montrose because, again, the bartender said, oh, it was a really nice car. She seems to be in that same car that he described. So it's like, let's see. I don't know. Right now, like watching that episode, I remember thinking, why is she so intrigued with this family? Like, what is it about this family that interests her? Because what we know kind of, I guess, historically is a lot of times in these scenarios, the white characters do not care about the black ones. I mean, that is really the whole premise, right? Like they are not concerned with the black character's well-being. And yet it seems like Christina is. So is she an ally? Is she a foe? I don't know, but I don't want her to be a white savior.
Well, Kristen says that she thinks that Christina is all about herself. I think she only helps them because she will need something from them.
Go ahead, Kristen.
You better prophesize, okay? And then, so I kind of said, me either, Kay, about you don't want her to end up being a white savior.
Yeah, I don't want that.
So, Robert, what are your thoughts about Christina?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat as Kay. I don't want her to be a white savior. And yeah, you're immediately. I mean, it's not just like a white person, taking an interest in this black family, but it's also a affluent white person taking interest in this like random black family from Chicago. And I've lived in Chicago my whole life. I've never seen a car like that in Chicago. So.
Now, I do want to switch gears a little bit, and it's something that I really do want to talk about, and it's really the montage that we see when we have Atticus, George, and Letty starting their travels throughout the Midwest. And we are brought into a voiceover from James Baldwin. Did we talk about that already?
No,
we talked about the other James Baldwin.
Okay, I thought I was tripping for him. I was like, girl, did you talk about that? So we talked... We hear clips from the debate between James Baldwin and William F. Buckley at the Cambridge Union in 1965 when they're having the debate from the American Dream and the American Negro. And I think that this is so important because one of the points that James Baldwin tries to make is that the American Dream has been accomplished by white people at the expense of Black people in America. And I think it's so perfectly woven as we see them travel through and we see the ice cream stand with the whites and the colors. And can we talk about the Aunt Jemima? I was like, Aunt Jemima, I hope that y'all switch your packaging because you know they're gonna drag you, honey. I'm just saying, they're gonna drag you. But I think it's very important that they do a great job of including voiceovers. And this James Baldwin is so important because we have Atticus, who is someone who has fought in the war, who served his country. This is one of the things that we see him talk about is that was a subject of argument between him and his father about fighting for a country that does not care about you. And so, Robert, I want to get your thoughts on how you felt about the use of James Baldwin in this episode.
Yeah, so the James Baldwin, I guess, reference or needle drop or however you want to say, the voiceover, is probably next to the ending, the highlight of the episode for me. It takes the episode from being this vibrant, kind of loose, freewheeling, road film or road TV show, and it turns into something poetic and something that's so incredibly deep. And to use the specific portion, the James Baldwin, the clip that James Baldwin's in, where he's talking about the cyclical nature of racism in America, that it doesn't change, right? That like what was present in 1965 was present in 1865. I think it's one of the most beautiful sequences I've seen this year, especially through all the propaganda where we see Aunt Jemima, and then we also see the one scene where you see all these Black people lined up, and I think we don't really know what they're lined up for, maybe like a food line or something like that, or maybe unemployment or whatever. But then you see the mural of the white family driving off for vacation, right? And like, who is the American dream actually for? And the answer is rarely for us.
Right. I'm not even going to say rarely. I'm definitely going to say it's not for us. I mean, like, never for us because, obviously the way the patriarchy and capitalism both align, it was never for us. The American dream was never meant to be for, Blacks and other people of color. But I will say, for me, kind of hearing that voiceover right as they enter into like the Sundown County, I think for me was the most poignant. Like it actually for me is the most poignant scene and my favorite scene of this first episode because it speaks volumes of what's to come. And so like they don't know what's ahead, but we know what's ahead. I mean, if that makes sense, because they're just, on this journey, they're traveling, and they're about to obviously encounter the real terror of the world, which is racism. But they don't know, like, that they're about to kind of come in contact with some additional adversaries, having just, kind of left Chicago and started this journey. But yeah, for me, yeah, it's definitely the best scene because hearing that voiceover and knowing what's to come, and knowing what lies ahead for this family, and then again, of course, seeing that Aunt Jemima billboard, which we know in 2020 It's not going to happen, Aunt Jemima. It's just, but the point is that, like, honestly, like, it's true. What James Baldwin said is true. Racism remains the same. It's still the same today, like the underlying factors, and that's why we have to dismantle it all. But
yeah, and this is the second time where we're given that foreshadow. We see it first when we see Dee's drawings on the maps where she has the Grim Reaper with the lamp, letting them know that this is a sundown part of the country. And then also, too, when we see the sign as they're going through to letting them know, hey, you don't want the sun to set down on you. And for those who might not know about sundown towns, actually, I'm not going to explain it because Robert has a piece dropping about it. So, Robert, go ahead and tell the people about sundown towns.
Come on, Robert. Educate the people.
So so sundown towns have been around for as long as there's been racism, basically. And so I have a piece tomorrow coming out in The Nerdist about sundown towns and how Lovecraft Country specifically explores it. And the interesting thing about sundown towns is that now in the series I think they do see a sign denoting that's a sundown town, but a lot of times sundown towns did not have signs. They weren't written laws; they were unwritten. You would only know if it was a sundown town unless you came into one. You looked around, saw no one was like you, and it just kept on rolling. And there are lots of eyewitness accounts and local stories of repercussions that would happen to Black motorists who were maybe their car broke down and they couldn't get out of a sundown town or a county. And actually, the author of Lovecraft Country started writing the book after he read a book by James Lowen called Sundown Towns, A Hidden Dimension of America's Racism. And basically, James Lowen goes through the entire history of sundown towns. And sundown towns still exist today in a lot of forms, capacities. And they're not just restricted to the South, which is what I love about this series, is that it's a series that's not set in the South. They go to the Northeast. Sundown towns were from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. They had, sometimes they had names, colloquial names, that would, amongst the white residents, which would denote that. In California, the Linwood was known as Lily White Linwood among the white residents. I love the way this series goes through sundown towns and takes the historical horror and makes it into a dramatic horror too.
I want to make sure I have your work wife, Joy.
Joy is my work wife. She's fantastic.
Let's get into what happens when they actually make it into the sun. Actually, no, I lied. I do want to go cover one thing that bothered me, another George issue. Okay. I swear, I do like Uncle George, but Uncle George was getting on my nerves a couple of times. I swear I do love Uncle George, okay? But, we hear Letty and Marvin, they're having this argument about money. I guess Letty just burned all her bridges with her siblings. And then we got the tea that Letty's mother died. And she didn't even show up to the funeral. And he gave her money to go to the funeral, but didn't come to the funeral. I was just like, Letty, I can't even take up for you at this point. Girl. You make me look bad right now.
But but that actually was legitimate, because what you hear her say basically is that she was protesting and she got arrested.
And she was bailing people out of jail.
Why she messed, yeah. So
still, it's your mama's funeral, girl. Like, it's your mama's funeral. I'm glad you fight for the people, fight for the cause, but it's your mama's funeral.
Fight for it, yeah. Say goodbye.
But so the part that has me a little unnerved, okay? George is having a conversation with Atticus as they're outside to escape the arguing in the house. And he basically talks about his father. He talks about the last time that they saw each other, how they got into an argument because he was enlisted in the Korean War and he was being interviewed. But George makes a statement that, your father was the youngest and he took the brunt of a lot of the stuff from our father. Almost alluding to the fact that Montrose himself was abused by his father. But then George makes the statement, but what about me? Like, I was young and you never came for me. You never tried to protect me. And so I think that is so profound. The conversations that they've had between one another, kind of this sins of the father, how it continues to be passed down. Montrose was beat by his father, so that's the only thing that he knew to do to then beat his son the same way that his father beat him. But the trash thing I wanted to bring up is the fact that Atticus tried to go inside of the house to help Letty because things seemed like it was getting. I was like, why were you like breaking dishes and stuff? Was he about to put his hands on her? And then he told him that that's family business. You stay out of it. I was just like, sir, didn't you just get called out for not helping people? It's okay. Like, how are you feeling about this?
I mean, I think that just goes back to what he was saying. Like, it speaks to Uncle George's kind of personality when it comes to issues that are going on with the family. So, like, the reason why he likely did not help Atticus when it came to Montrose is because he was like, you're rearing this son. Yeah, like, this is your son. This is how you're choosing to raise him. I don't need to step in. It's almost the way he said it for Letty and her brother. Like, okay, this is not my business. It's not my family business. I maintain what is, my family business at that time. And it's like, Uncle George, sometimes you need to get involved. Now, I don't necessarily think in that instance, like, Letty seemed like she could take her brother. Like, also, just her personality, honestly, he should be concerned, like in that scenario, because I feel like, Letty really is truly the one. But also, yes, like Uncle George, you need to sometimes step in, especially in this scenario, because Letty is not a stranger. Like, it's not like, oh, I see those people fighting over there and I don't know if I should help. Like, her and this family and you're staying with this family. And it might be family business, but we don't let family business turn into violence. Like, that's not what we do, Uncle George. So, yeah.
I was just confused. And I like that MCJ brings up, it made me think of Malcolm X's speech about how Black women are the least protected. And I was just like...
Least respected, least protected in every single facet of this world. So.
And Robert?
Yeah, I mean... Uncle George doesn't look great throughout this episode. Even though, like, Courtney B. Vance is fantastic this entire episode. He is amazing. He's the emotional heart of this, and you can tell everyone really depends on him, which makes it worse that his character is so passive. And part of me wants to say that it's a generational divide too, where I know, like, my grandmother would always be like, that's their business over there, it's not ours, whereas I, being a younger generation, say, no, it's going on right there, we should do something about it. But no, George just, I don't know. I mean, George's been repping that his whole life, so I don't know.
Which is interesting to me because George has a daughter. Like, you know what I mean? It's interesting because he has a young daughter, and you would assume, I'm just going to say assume, that he wouldn't want that to happen to his own daughter. Or if there was some sort of scenario where it seemed like physical violence was on the horizon, you would think that he would respond differently.
Well,
and
we already
kind of viewing Letty in that same light almost, like, I feel like he should.
Yeah, I mean, we already know that, like, it's unfortunately not uncommon for men who have daughters, who have wives. That's always like the common excuse, like, oh, I have a daughter, I would never do this, and that doesn't mean anything.
I always say that.
You also have a mama.
But look, we're not gonna beat up. We're not gonna beat up on him because in the scene before, he talked to Hippolyta. He said he told her we can do a little date trip, do the little safe path, the safe Negro travel, book guide together. And then I felt her. She was like, "Thank you." Like, I felt that when she put the phone to her heart. I was like, "Oh, girl, I felt that for you, boo." I'm happy that he said that. But there's another thing brewing in our comment section, y'all. So Amber says, "Can we talk about Letty being the only light-skinned sister? Am I reaching, or is it possible she's mixed, like the product of assault from a white man related to her parents, bad marriage? Is it a stretch?" And then also, too, Carlos said, did anyone pick up on how the sisters do not look the same? One is dark skinned, the other is light skinned. So what are you guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah,
I really don't have the same father. Like, I mean,
they are half sisters.
They are half sisters. She mentions that. Ruby mentions that. Ruby makes a point, to very very much a very strong point where she's like, no, we are half siblings.
Yeah.
So she is the Baptistes. I think this is their last name, Ruby Baptiste, and then the brother whose name I've forgotten his first name, but
Marvin.
they are Marvin. Yeah. So she is their half sister.
They have the same mother.
Yeah, they have the same mother. Now, when it comes to assault, possible. I don't know. It could. Yeah, I don't think it's far fetched at all. I'm not entirely sure. I remember kind of watching this, and when Ruby mentioned that they were half sisters, I wondered if Letty even knew who her father was at all. Like, that was actually kind of my first thought, is that she doesn't know him. Her mom didn't reveal or anything like that.
I was trying to go back to think what happened in the book. Or that...
Yeah, in the book, Letty's a different character. She's kind of a Bible thumper in the book. You know, she's very religious.
It's totally different from the series.
Yeah. Ruby's about the same, but in the book, it's the same thing. They're one Ruby is dark skin and Letty's light skin.
Yeah. But it is possible for people to have like dark skin siblings and light skin. It's not.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, genetically speaking, it's not impossible, but we know for a fact that they're half siblings because they mentioned it, not just because we're speculating. They definitely mentioned it. Y'all, I'm a scientist in real life. Like, genetically speaking, any possibility, honestly, like, genes can pull from any generation they choose. So like, that is fine. But only because they mentioned it. And my first thought was that I'm not sure she's ever met her father. Like, once they mentioned that they were half siblings, I thought, I don't know that she knows her dad. And I think Ruby does mention something about their mother, and one of them mentioned something about their mother, you know, was it Letty who mentions, like, you know, their mom being just, you know, like very sexual and kind of like, you know, out there. One of the siblings mentions it.
No, their mama had them in church.
No, but one of the siblings mentions her like being out in the streets. Like, one of the siblings says that. Yes. I mean, and I can also still go out to church and be in the streets, but
I can't put them out in the streets now, okay?
No, I'm saying, like, yeah, like, one of the kids was like, no, mom was in the streets. So I'm like, okay, you know, like, hey, mama. I mean, like, yes, she also took them to church, but I'm pretty positive one of the, like, one of the siblings was like, she was in the streets. And I was like,
I ain't gonna talk about mama like that. I don't want to go straight down. I ain't gonna talk about mama like that.
I mean, but if mama was in the streets, then mama was in the streets. Like, what? I mean, bad because mama in the streets?
I cannot. It's been almost an hour. We got two more big points outside of mama being in these streets to cover. So I do want to get into the Sundown town portion of it. So they find themselves in Devon County. They're lost. Everybody's getting annoyed because they've been going in circles for hours at this point. And so they get out. Atticus is like, I'm finna go look myself. I'm just like, sir, if you don't sit your raggedy behind in this car and talk about where you finna walk and go find something, what you finna do? Let me know.
You came for George this episode.
No, somebody
Atticus.
Oh, I was like, wait a minute.
Atticus George is in the car.
Yeah, I was like, his knees are bad. Like, he knows.
Yeah, I side with George on this. So Atticus gets out, trying to just do the most, okay? And then we see that the police officer pulls up, and I just like, oh, heck no. This is not about to end well. So we see a very tenseful scene between Atticus, and I thought Atticus was about to, like, when basically he tells them that, hey, you guys do realize you're in a sundown town and you have 7 minutes until sundown, okay? And I can do whatever I want, when I want, how I want, okay? And so when Atticus kind of got smart, it's like, sir, can we make a U-turn? I was just like, I mean, that's a good question. I'm happy, but come on, Atticus, like, what we doing? And then when he kind of makes him say, hey, like, say, you know, this smart N-word, because we're protecting our peace, you know, can I make a U-turn to get out of here? And then that's when I had my first asthma attack, y'all. That's when the first asthma attack kicked in, as they are trying to get out. They got 4 minutes at this time because Atticus had all these questions, wasting 3 minutes of their time before sundown. And we are on a chase. So Robert, thoughts, how did you feel about this?
Well, like I said earlier, I love the way the series takes historical horror and makes it into, drama. Um, and the sheriff being this, person who is literally looking for any infraction in order to arrest them, obviously very common in sundown towns. And most sundown towns, if there was a bus station, the police officer would allow you to stay at the bus station, but then they would patrol around to make sure you never left the bus station. And it wasn't uncommon for when black motorists, when their cars did break down, that they didn't get any tow help. They didn't get any help when it came to gas or replacement parts or anything like that. And so, yeah, and I think actually that scene that the 25-mile-per-hour scene is actually, if I remember correctly, a real life thing that that the author of Lovecraft Country is drawing on. In Lowen's book, there is a story about a black motorist who literally had 8 minutes to get out of a county, and he had I think he had to go like 25 miles in 8 minutes or something like that. Some insane distance. So yeah, no, I think that scene is fantastic. It's once again, we talk about like the series shifting and it being 3 different episodes in one, and that is the beginning of the 3rd episode, is that chase scene to get out of the Sundown County.
Okay, because you had some expressions, you had emotions on your face. Tell me, honey, how did you feel about this?
No, I mean, those expressions mostly were me agreeing with Robert. I mean, I just felt like it was high speed, it was high chase. We kind of knew exactly what was going to happen. I mean, like I knew they were going to make it out, but I knew it was going to be, like by a hair, like a literal hair that they were going to make it out and cross that county line on time. But I will say, I don't think, I get it, Sharronda, we're under duress. There's kind of a shot clock happening, but he was asking the right questions because he knew.
Yeah, no,
how that man was.
I was just scared.
And he knew like, okay, time is winding down. Okay, let me ask this very quickly because I know that you're going to do anything to pull me over. Now, what I will say that got me was that I wasn't expecting what came after. So like for me, the high speed chase, you're like, okay. And then I remember thinking to myself, we have like 5 more minutes left in this episode. Like or something like that, like 3 to 5 more minutes left. And I was like, well, what could possibly happen? Because they made the county line. Ciao.
Look, I was shook. I was like, look, I said, they can't kill all the black people. They can't kill all the black people in the first episode. Like they the majority of the cast. We can't kill everybody in episode 1, so they have to survive. So
yeah, we got happy.
They get over that hill, and then you see that raggedy police officer called the sheriff, and they were waiting. And I was just like, when he said, "Oh, S word," just in case my parents are watching, I was just like, I felt that. I just like, if it ain't one thing, it's another. And and I agree, the classic trope of celebrating too soon. We were like, oh, we made it, okay? We made it. I'm sorry, my little church guy.
Yeah, we didn't make anything. But, like literally crossed over that line, and what we made was death.
They went from one issue to another, and that was the whole point of them, because he didn't say it was a sundown town. He said it was a sundown county.
He said county. So right. So when you the county line, you like, ooh.
They were waiting. When they said, like, we were ready. Okay? So they were ready. My fake ass is bothering me right now, y'all. Sorry. So we see that they take them into the woods, and we're introduced to this infamous sheriff. Remember when Marvin's giving them the information about what to expect from Devon County, what to expect from Artem. He tells them that the sheriff has an NAACP record like a mile long. Like, he's had so many complaints. People have gone missing. They're foreshadowing what is to come in Devon County. And this is when we get into our horror, like our classic horror element of the episode. And we see that the police are trying to accuse them of burglarizing a couple of nearby towns. And essentially, when Atticus called him by his name, I said, Atticus, baby. Why you call him by his name? You ain't supposed to know that. And then Cheryl's like, how you know my name? And I just Ugh. Ugh. I was so scared for them. But before we could even get shook about what was about to happen to them, these creatures just come out of nowhere, getting arms bit off, heads bit off, blood splattering everywhere. I was just like, oh my God, what is happening right now? I'm just so confused. I am shook. We see arms fly, like the little arm with the flashlight. Of course, Uncle George with his bad knees just sitting there on the ground trying to get the flashlight. And Letty and Atticus leave Uncle George. I said, so y'all gonna leave the one person who got bad knees, y'all just gonna leave him. And then this is when we just divert horrible choices during horror moments. And 10 minutes later, Atticus, when they make it to the cabin, talking about, where's Uncle George? I said, sir, you're about 10 minutes too late asking that question, sir. So what are our thoughts during this entire scene? Because it's just a lot happening. And this is when the episode when it took every last edge that I had left, it took all my edges at this moment. So, Kay, thoughts?
This was the culmination for me, honey. So these monsters came up out of that grounds, and I was like, oh. That's all I kept saying the whole time. I will say, they're running for their lives. They're getting to the cabin. And I love how even in the cabin, racism is still peeking through. You only have one arm. This monster just ate your arm, and you still trying to control the situation.
Like, sir,
and
what are we doing?
Two Black people stay over here. Wait, what you say? Oh, what you say?
What'd you say, girl? You paused.
Yeah.
But I was still following along with your girl. Look,
to talk about the racism part, with the one arm, what I found the scene that I found interesting was when Atticus says he's gonna run to the car, and the sheriff's like, he might not come back. And I was like, ooh.
Oh, no, but then he said, you too smart, sir. This is the time. What are we doing?
Thanks.
What are we doing right now? I just didn't understand. But
I'm concerned about why they're.
You said what?
I said I was just worried. I was like, why are you guys worried about the wrong things right now?
The wrong thing. But I love the pep talk that Atticus gives Letty when he basically says, make the girl go. So I'm like, so you gonna make the only woman up in this raggedy cabin go get the flares and stuff once they figure out, well, after they found Uncle George wobbling come out of nowhere, they let him in. And then, they send Letty to go get the flares and everything after they discovered that they're like vampires and they don't like the light. And baby, when I tell you that Letty ran for her life, okay, she ran like she was running to her freedom, that she was running to get all of our Sally Mae loans made, that she was running to her future husband, okay? Letty ran so we didn't have to, okay? And I
just so raggedy.
I just wanted to give Letty the credit that she deserved. Because maybe when she said she was a track star, I was like, girl, like, were you like you was in track or you was like in the meets? But Letty did that. And when Atticus gave her this speech, like, I don't have to worry about fear right now because you're gonna save us. I said, baby, you better tell your future wife that. You better tell her.
Not you better tell your future wife. I will say though, listen. For me, when that first cop got eaten, I was like, well, there goes a racist. I mean, I didn't truly like,
one less.
Sir, you chose your fate. So we got one less, so here we are. I just didn't feel that bad. I'm not even for the lie to y'all. I was just like, this one.
I was here for all of this, okay? But I do want to
right on time though. Right on time.
Definitely right on time.
Right on time. Like,
I just want to say that they said that Letty ran with the spirit of the ancestors, and I felt
you better take this African blood and come on. And
yeah, she was running. Okay, I had to ask him that because I felt tired for her how she was running. But I do love that Letty does end up saving the day. But we get our second moment where there's stuff that Black people would say that was actually said in the middle of a horror scene, where they realized that the sheriff is turning into one of the creatures, okay? So he turned into one of the creatures, and they were like, George is like, I think that you need to shoot him. And I was like, shoot him. And he was like, no, I'm not going to shoot him. I was like, bro, when Atticus was like, shoot that MFer, I said.
And guess what? He didn't shoot him, and guess what? He chose his fate. He chose his fate.
He got eaten. You was too busy being a racist, and that's why you dead now, because of your racism. Okay.
I see why I didn't feel bad when that happened.
No one felt bad. No one felt bad whatsoever. And so we see that they set up a perimeter. Letty gets to the car. She kills a little monster with a headlight. She takes the camera. I said, girl, you better think on your feet, boo. Taking a picture of the camera to look flash. George passed out somewhere. I was like, George, you are so worthless.
Over Sharronda George slander. Like the way she slanders George this entire episode that we're doing, like it is the worst. Like you basically hate George. Like you might
George. I swear I like George.
The girl, because this whole episode. I
swear I like George. But I was like, George, where you pass out from? I'm confused. Why are you passed out right now? They got to drag him in front of the headlights. They busy trying to put the flares and stuff up, setting the perimeter, and then you hear a dog whistle, and they just go. I said, "What?"
Go away.
I identify with George. Like this man had to run through the forest to get away alone. Had to run through the forest on two bad knees to get away from these monsters.
Robert said George
all races turned into a monster, so a car crashed with a cabin. I'd be passed out too.
Like honestly, Robert said, "I am George." Like in this scenario, I'm George. If we get caught with these monsters, just know I'm about to be George. I'm George. Like
I was just,
yeah. The way you love George is the way I love younger siblings.
Came back 2 days later talking about where Uncle George, where you left him in the woods alone. Like, what are you talking about? With his bad knees. With the bad knees. You know he got bad knees. You saw him icing the bad knees the whole night before. I'm confused. But yes, I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop. Uncle George made it. He survived. They make it through. They're walking. They make it to Artem. They make it to this big old mansion. And then William, y'all don't know he William, but his name William is okay. It's not a spoiler. His name William. I just told you his name. My bad, y'all. Sorry. Spoiler alert. But they make it to the front doorstep, and he says, "Mr. Freeman, we've been waiting on you." And I'm just like, sir, first of all, you look creepy. Okay? He's like creepy, but can kind of get it at the same time.
I was like, what you saying? Like, William is fine. Actually.
He was, but he was still creepy. Like, I can't trust you, but like, if we got into the boom,
you can't trust a single white person on this show. I just feel like that is.
No, you're correct. You're correct. But he was like, "We've been waiting on you, Mr. Freeman." I said, "Welcome home." I said, "Sir, what? They got all this blood. You not concerned?" I was just like, "You can't trust them. You in danger, honey." I didn't understand. So, what are your guys' thoughts overall? What are your predictions for? Actually, I can't ask you guys that because you've seen next week, so that's not even a fair question to everybody else. But what are your thoughts about just overall, like for this to be a premiere, like how well do you think it did actually grabbing the audience's attention, making them want to tune in for episode 2? Okay.
Oh, I think that it did wonderfully, particularly in those last 20 minutes of getting the audience to be so hooked, but also so curious, but also to be like, I have no earthly idea where this show is going. I think that's what I remember when I finished the pilot. I remember thinking, where is this going? Like, I'm intrigued, but I have no idea. Like, I truly have no idea. And I will just say, I kept that same energy for all of the episodes I've seen. I still have no idea. I still don't know, but I'm so excited to find out. So I think as a pilot, it did exceptionally well for a premiere episode. Like, again, I like how we know just enough about these main characters. We don't know everything. Obviously, like, you like Atticus, but also, you know, he has a lot of secrets. Hell, he hung up that phone so quick. I mean, besides the secret baby, you know, you like Letty, but you also know she's hiding some stuff too, and not just the fact that her mom is a sex worker, because obviously I respect sex work. Sex work is still work. So, we know there's more in that vein as well. So everyone, and even Uncle George, because we didn't talk about this, even when Tick comes back and he meets Uncle George in his shop before they go on this journey, and he shares the letter with him and says that he wants to go to Artem. Uncle George has a secret, because if you look at his face, the moment that Tick mentions his mother, who is allegedly dead, that's also a theory I have, y'all. I don't think that lady's dead. But I will say, I definitely do.
I did think that too.
I don't think she's dead. But I will say, the face that Uncle George made, he's clearly hiding something. He stood up so quick as soon as he said something about his mama. He was like, tell me more. Okay, Uncle George, what you have over here? Uncle George probably know that she's alive too, because I personally think she's alive, and I think before episode 10, we're gonna see his mama, honey. So
okay, so the mama alive. We got a secret baby. Okay,
secret baby, okay. Mama's alive. He might have 2 secret babies, because you talking about he gonna get married to Letty. I mean, he might end up with 2 kids by then, because you talking about he gonna marry Letty. So if he gonna marry Letty, he might have Letty's baby plus the secret Blasian baby. We never know what's in store, because legacy could mean a lot for Atticus this season. But outside of that, though,
I like how it was like a female reference for legacy.
I'm excited to see if we're going to even find Montrose, and if we find him, what state we'll find him in.
Okay. Well, Robert, you seem that you disagree with a lot of what Kate had to say. So what is
I there's a secret baby being popped out everywhere. I love this episode. I think this is one of the most ambitious. I mean, like, the closest I have felt watching a series like this is when Watchmen was on, right? In terms of ambition and scope. And what I love about this episode is that it gives you everything, right? It gives you character development. It gives you horror. It gives you drama. It has these it's a thriller. It's intense, but it also has like these light moments, like the block party, which this series can be very vibrant, and there can be jubilation in it. One of my favorite shots is when Atticus is walking beneath the the train tracks, and you see all the extras behind him. So 1950 Chicago really comes to life. That tracking shot underneath the train actually reminded me of one of the shots from Spike Lee's Malcolm X, when Malcolm X and Spike Lee's character walking underneath the tracks. But yeah, no, every portion of this episode was just fantastic. It's a perfectly balanced writing, and in terms of what's coming next, I mean, I think you and me, Kay, right? We all got the first 5 episodes, and I agree. Like, even 5 episodes in, I don't know where the series is going, and I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, like it's not a bad thing, because I don't want people to watch this and think, so I never know what's happening. No, like, in a way that is so intriguing. Like, that's the best way to put it. Like, you are thrilled not to know where it's headed, because you still want to keep watching. Like, it's just like, I have to know what's happening next. And I have no idea, but I'm okay with that. Like, so yes, I agree, Robert. But Robert, now his mama is still alive. Don't even, it's coming. I know she's still alive. I do not think she's dead, honestly, because I could joke about a lot of things, but I definitely think that she's still alive.
Now, MCJ, she's upset because we didn't talk about Atticus's back and how Letty was taking pictures. And I said I was trying not to objectify Jonathan Majors episode, and if I would have talked about that moment, which was a great moment, he was giving himself like a little hoe bath, and then he was taking a picture. Y'all don't act like y'all don't know what hoe baths are. This is why I'm not.
I just like that you are trying not to objectify him, yet we're talking about him bathing.
I was setting it up. That's what he was doing. He was doing, he a whole ass. He just washing underarms and stuff, and that's it. And Letty was taking the pictures of it. But he had a strong back with the bicep, with the tricep. Okay, I'm just gonna let it go. I didn't bring it up. MCJ, she brought it up. I had nothing to do with it. I was just reading the comment. Okay.
Well, I will say the cinematography is beautiful, and you
Yeah.
can tell, what happens when you have a show ran by a Black creative. The cinematography is great. The makeup, the lighting, the camera work, it all comes together and it frames things in a very beautiful way. So yes.
The costuming is fantastic. Dana Pink, who's in charge of the costuming, especially with Letty's, what we'll see throughout the course of this first half of the season. I think Letty has some of the best costumes. Even to her sister Ruby has some fantastic costumes. Ooh. I was like, y'all need to go ahead and just do a whole clothing line, because I'm definitely gonna cop the wait for next week's episodes, because the costuming was on point. That's all I'm gonna say. Period. But I do want to ask you guys one last question in regards to the music. So I am conflicted about the music within the first episode, and I know this is something that Misha did with Underground, where you see some more modern music show up into something that's set in a different time period of the past. For me, sometimes it actually took me out of the moment. But other songs like, you Upset Me Baby by BB King, you had an Etta James song, I Just Want to Make Love to You, but then there were songs like Clothes by Tierra Whack, and so I want to get your thoughts on how you felt about the music for this first episode, and Robert, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the music in this first episode was actually good. I did think the contemporary needle drops were tasteful and they made sense. I will say later on in the series, I'm not a fan of the contemporary, needle drops. I do think they take you out of the era that we're in.
Okay, because you had a face, honey.
So the music. I actually spoke to Misha Green specifically about the music, because I actually do like the use of music to drive the narrative. And it is not in this episode, but I will say in episode 3, her use of music for one scene in particular is probably my favorite that I've seen thus far. And it's not really in a traditional sense, but as the series goes on, which this is not a spoiler, because if y'all read my article, she mentioned it, she's going to be using gospel music in a lot of ways that most shows haven't before. And I'm actually here for that. So there is the use of one song that I didn't like, to Robert's point. Like there is one modern day song that's used, and I'm like, no. It doesn't fit for me. But the rest of the music I actually really like throughout the series and how it drives the narrative.
MCJ, she says the modern music didn't bother her that much. She felt like they use it in specific parts. And Black Italian Gaming says, hey, I would like if they kept the classic tracks, dropping some Billie Holiday in there. Okay. I see this as, I do want to open up just for a few minutes. I know everybody got to go to bed. We got jobs. We got to go to work in the morning. Does anyone have any questions for us? Any of my wonderful guests, my booked and busy guests? We'll see if people have some questions. I feel like we cover stuff so in depth that ain't nobody gonna have no questions, because we'll try to record it next time. But we were just so excited to talk to one another because we've been separated, like reunited, and it feels so good.
Woo!
Sharronda was using this episode the song "Clones," which I think they played when they got to the beginning of the block party.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa, who says, great discussion. Carlos Hernandez says, anyone notice the reference to a Panther comic the girl had been working on? Is this the comic that Dee actually hands to her father that was actually based off of her mother? Oh, Gerald wants to know who blew that damn whistle.
Gerald, you'll find out.
Yeah, you'll find out next episode, literally.
Yeah, you actually will find out next episode who is responsible for blowing the whistle. Oh, Joy wants to know, outside of Robert's Nerdist piece, any other pieces y'all are dropping? You have interviews, Kay.
I do. So next week, there will be an interview with Journey dropping, and then follow the next 3 weeks, because I'm going to have more of the cast. My girl, Woomy, who plays Ruby, Abby Lee, who plays Christina. So there are going to be a few more interviews coming down the pipeline.
See, I told you my friends be booked and busy. Robert got 15 million pieces coming out too. Well, I don't know why you being quiet.
Yeah, so I've got the Nerdist piece coming out tomorrow. Right now, the only other confirmed piece I have is a piece that's scheduled for the third episode of Lovecraft Country. It's going to be on rodjupiter.com. That's well, I don't want to give away the episode, but yeah, it's going to be about ghosts basically. But yeah.
And also too for payorwait.com, Adriana, who is one of the contributors to Payorwait, she's going to be dropping a piece after episode 2 next week on Monday in regards to the costuming that we see, especially with Letty's character. So we do have some great pieces coming out. I'll make sure to share that on social media, tag everyone involved. And also too, if you come back to this actual chat, I will make sure to post everyone's pieces in there as well, because we got to make sure that everyone gets their shine.
Yeah.
I'm really sick. My goodness, what did I do? Also too, like, my gosh. Everyone wants to know, what do you guys think of the actors? Can you grade the lead performances? I mean, I just say A's across the board because everyone did the damn thing.
Yeah, I agree.
A's. Everyone pulled up. They showed up. They did what they needed to do. And yeah, A's across the board.
So Iconic says, I think you guys hit it out of the park. This discussion was everything. Okay, thank you.
Iconic.
Jordan wants to know, what did you guys think of the lighting during the party? I thought the lighting was actually very fantastic. And this is something that you see a lot of people talk about, lighting, especially for Black actors. I think at the Black party, it was just so well done. I love the bold color choices that they have. Ruby is wearing this blue dress. You have Letty, her nails stand out to me, the red nails. I want to say Jezebel nails because that's what my mama used to say to me. If I had red nails, she'd probably Jezebel. But she has like the skirt, the top, even the shirts that Atticus wears. Atticus has this like yellow shirt on. I just think that the costume and the lighting is just fantastic. I just think everything looks beautiful. But Kay, you gave me a face. What you give me a face for?
You said red nails remind you of a Jezebel.
Oh yeah, my mama used to say that I had Jezebel nails.
Oh,
and if my dad is watching, don't be snitching.
I was like, wait, what? Oh my gosh. But thank you, Sharronda. I can't wait to come back and talk about more of these episodes because you know which one my favorite, honey.
Actually, yeah, I guess we can't talk about our favorite episodes, yes, but we all do have different favorite episodes. So, yeah, someone said name musics, please. So we had Etta James, I Just Want to Make Love to You. We had Clones by Tierra Whack. We had September Song by Sarah Vaughan and You Upset Me Baby by BB King. The only thing that I couldn't get was the song at the end of the episode, which I really wanted to know what that song was called, but I tried to Shazam it. It didn't work. So, I mean, yeah, I tried, y'all. I'm sorry. Movie File says they absolutely love this pilot episode, one of my favorites in recent memory. And I love this discussion. I love this live segment for the most fire. Oh, thank you, Movie Files. But you guys make sure you follow Movie Files. And also, too, you guys, thank you so much. Today, I actually hit 30,000 subscribers. And I will be nothing without you guys. So thank you so much. I'll make sure that we try to do a live Q&A. Ask me anything within reason, because you know how y'all be. But we'll do that to celebrate the 30,000 followers. But I really appreciate it. Oh, they say it's Center Man by Nina Simone.
Yeah, that ends every episode.
You did a whole thing about Nina Simone. You weren't going to tell me?
Yeah, I'm working on a piece about Nina Simone, but
Wow.
Oh, Robert.
Wow. See where I stand. But thank you all so much for joining us on the live after show of Lovecraft Country episode 1. I want to give a special thank you to my guest, KB. You can follow her at The Real Lady KB on social media. I guess I should have let you say something. You go ahead and
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, thank you so much, Rhonda, for having myself and having Robert on the show. It's been fantastic. What a rich conversation. I love that we were able to just really dive into you guys reading the book, because I did not, but incorporating the book, incorporating all of the James Baldwin, the symbolism, the Black excellence, and then matching that with the sci-fi, the horror. There's so much more to come, but you guys just follow me, and it is at the Lady KB. Follow Robert. You're already following Sharronda, which is a win. And stay tuned for next week when she has 2 other amazing guests and co-hosts that I probably know and am also friends with. So, yes, I'm here to support.
I'm gonna announce it, but I gotta make sure I confirm they're gonna be coming. Somebody got scared after our first conversation. You never know. But thank you to Robert. We call him our elitist booked and busy friend. It's all
He elevates us. He elevates us.
It's honored to be in your presence, Robert. Okay. At 812 Film Reviews. Robert, tell everyone where to follow you.
Yeah, like I say, you can follow me at 812 Film Reviews on Twitter, and I'll be having new stuff coming out in the Nerdist and RogerEbert.com in the coming weeks. I'm just happy you invited me. You and I have been talking about this episode for a while now since we watched it. Yeah, so I'm glad that we can finally talk about this series in the open and finally talk about some of the spoilers and stuff, because you and I we've been having these conversations.
Yes, and same. Yeah, I've been talking to Sharronda about it, but I'm so glad, y'all, that I was finally able to spoil things, because child,
it's really hard keeping these secrets.
Hello. Come on.
It takes a toll on you, okay? But I hope that everyone has a happy Monday. Protect your peace. Protect your energy. Don't let anybody steal your joy. And make sure that you come back next week as we talk about episode 2 on Lovecraft Country. I will have 2 new guests on the show that you're going to love just as much as you love Kay, even though she disrespected us young siblings this week. But she gave us the predictions of we have 2 babies on the way, So thank you, Kay, for all of your thoughts. And also, too, thank you so much, Robert, for joining me. Hope everyone has a great week, and I will chat with all of you guys soon. Kay and Robert, do not hang up, but I am going to end this broadcast, but have a great evening. And go to bed. Y'all got to go to work tomorrow. Love you guys 3000, and until I see you again, bye, guys.